Hi everyone, we're going to be talking today about packing your bag for the Sahara Desert Trek. Now, this is a bit of a different trekking trip to the majority of our trips, so we're not going to need a great deal of stuff because the weather is pretty predictable in the Sahara. So we're not going to need too much warm clothing, although we will need to take some with us because the evenings and the mornings can get a little bit chilly. So you're going to start your trip off with two bags. You're going to have your duffel bag, which is going to be carried on the camels, and you're going to have your day pack, which you are going to be trekking with you each day. So I'm going to start with sleeping. You're camping in the Sahara Desert, so you are going to need to have a sleeping bag with you. Now, I've been there at I've done the Sahara Desert Trek 4 or 5 times now, and each time the weather has always been a bit different. Sometimes I've done it, it's been freezing in the evenings, and then sometimes I've done it, you've had to sleep on top of your sleeping bag because it's been so warm in the evening. So you need to be prepared for a cold evening, unfortunately. So a 3-season sleeping bag is perfectly adequate for this trip. If you're coming away with a bucket list company, you will have mats provided in the tents. Some people still choose to take their own mat. The mats aren't very thick. You can be camping on, most of the Sahara is rocks, so you could be on a rocky bit. So some people do pack their own sleeping mat as well, just to be able to double them up and have a little bit more comfort. It's entirely up to you how you want to do that. So I have got mine, and I will pack it because sometimes it is quite nice in the evenings to just pull your roll mat out and sit in the sun and enjoy the sunshine, or more so once the sun's gone down, when the stars are all out, it's nice just to lay outside and look up at the sky and see the stars. So I will take my roll mat with me as well. Next, on to clothing. We'll start with, I have had rain in the Sahara Desert. The last time I did the trek, we had a couple of days worth of rain. It wasn't heavy rain, it was a couple of light showers, but you kind of don't want to get everything soaking. So just put a waterproof jacket in just in case. They don't take up a lot of space, they don't take up a lot of weight, but it's just a handy thing to have just in case. Clothing wise, you're going to need to pack really for both extremes. So during the day, you're going to be walking in shorts, t-shirt, but then in the evening, potentially it can get quite chilly, so you're going to need to have a bit of a layering system to keep warm. So I would normally start off with a wicking t-shirt for each day, and I'll have a clean one for each day because you do sweat a lot on this trip, so you don't really want to be putting it on for a second day. So I will take 4 or 5 of these with me, so have a clean one for each day. And I'll also start the day off with either a pair of shorts on or a pair of zip-off trousers, so I can turn them into shorts depending on how the day starts. So some mornings you get up and it's really cold and you feel like you need to start off wearing a pair of trousers, but by the time you've been walking for an hour and a half, 2 hours, the sun's right above you, it gets warm again, and then you want to take the bottoms off and give your legs a bit of air. So I've got both of those there. Like I said, I'll have shorts and I'll have some lightweight trousers. You don't really need heavy trousers. Lightweight trousers are enough. But I will take a couple of pairs of shorts, a couple of pairs of trousers, and like I said, a clean wicking top for every day, so I've got a clean change of clothes. Likewise, clean pair of pants for every day, clean pair of socks for every day. Obviously you want good trekking socks, but at the same time you don't want thick trekking socks. You're going to want a lightweight pair of trekking socks that protect your feet from blisters but are not going to get your feet too hot. So make sure you've got a clean pair again for every day. You're not really restricted on weight on the Sahara Desert Trek with us because the bags are carried by the camels. They're not carried by porters or Sherpas. So, but again, you don't want to be overloading the camels. So, about 10 to 12 kilos, you should be able to get everything you need in for a Sahara Desert Trek. In this little bag here, and I use these packing cubes, they're really helpful because you can find everything really easy. So I know which is my socks and my pants, so I can get in there and get what I need out in the morning when you're in the tent sorting your stuff out. In this one, I've got a thin pair of gloves. Again, in the mornings, sometimes when you start your walk, it does get really cold first thing. So if you do get cold hands, then a thin pair of gloves are really useful. I've got a warm hat for the evenings, again, just in case it gets cold. I haven't actually ever worn one on, it's enough to put my hood up on my jacket if it gets a bit cold, but just pack one just in case. And then more importantly are buffs. Now these are super handy when you're on the Sahara Desert Trek. If it gets windy, it's going to get really dusty. You can pull it up over your nose. It protects the back of your neck from the sun. If it gets really hot, you can wet it, put it around your neck, and it will cool you down. So a couple of these are really useful for the trek as well. Moving on from hats, you are going to want a sun hat with a peak on the front and protecting your neck on the back. You tend to walk away from the sun. You don't realise if the back of your neck gets burnt on day 1, day 2, it's going to be very uncomfortable for you as the trek goes on. So protecting yourself is super important. Likewise with your eyes, it's very bright in the Sahara. The glare is super off the sand. The sun is high in the sky. You're going to want to protect your eyes. A good pair of wraparound sunglasses, making sure everything's protected, super important. And you might even want to take a spare pair as well, because if anything happens to yours, you break them, you lose them, you know, it's one thing you don't want to have that sun glaring on your face all day long. So either a good pair of sunglasses or a couple of pairs with a spare pair as well, I would advise. Warm jacket, like I said, in the evenings, first thing in the mornings when you get into camp. And it's more so because you've been so hot during the day. Any temperature change, you really notice it in the evenings because you've been so hot during the day. So by taking a warm jacket with you, just gives you something to put on in the evenings. Just keeps you warm and toasty when you're sat around the campfire in the evenings. Wash bag. You're in the Sahara Desert. You wouldn't believe it, but sometimes where we camp, there can be oases. So you have the opportunity to get in, have a wash, clean yourself in the Sahara Desert. So a towel, a lightweight packed towel that will dry quickly, is really useful to have with you. Likewise, a pair of swimming trunks so you can get in and have a wash when everyone else is there. But the important thing for the Sahara Desert is to take a biodegradable shampoo with you, body wash. So actually you're not polluting the oases that are there because they're used there for the animals. So if you are going to want to go and use that, then make sure you take a biodegradable soap with you that you can get from any travel shop. And then obviously you'll need your toothbrush, toothpaste. If the oases aren't there, then wet wipes will become your best friend on this trip, because when you get into camp in the evening, you will want to have a body wash, get the dust and the sand off you. The Sahara Desert is very dusty. In this one, I've got a couple of jumpers. Again, a thin one and a thicker one, just for the evenings, or potentially in the mornings when you first get up and start trekking. The sun really does need to come up and be over you for you to feel the warmth. And in the mornings when you first get up, that's probably the coldest time that you're going to feel it. So just having those extra layers that you can put on in the morning and then take them off as the day warms up, again, super important. So I think layering is the biggest piece of advice I can give people on this, is to have lots of options so you can either stay cool or stay warm if you need to on this trek. You're going to need a head torch in the evenings. We've got toilet tents. You're going to need a head torch to find your way around your tent in the evening, sorting your stuff out, get into the dining tent. So having a head torch, we don't ever need it for walking. We never walk at the night, but it's just a case of when you're around the camp, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and need to go to the toilet tent, you're going to need to have a head torch to find your way around. Unless the moon is up and it's a full moon, then you probably won't need it, but potentially I would take one and make sure it's a good one as well. Obviously we've got no access to power in the Sahara Desert, funnily enough, so making sure your phone is charged, making sure your smartwatch is charged if you're using that to map out the trek that we're doing, and making sure you're charging your camera, head torch, etc. So a battery pack that can charge everything that you need is a super piece to take with you. Make sure it's fully charged before you go. One quick thing on battery packs is make sure that you carry these in your hand luggage on the aeroplane, not in your main duffel bag. One piece of advice there. Footwear. I don't wear a pair of boots for the Sahara Desert Trek. I will do it in a pair of approach shoes. I don't do it in a pair of trainers. You want something with a nice solid sole on it, There's lots of prickly bushes and thorns and things like that, and we did have someone a few years ago who stepped on one and it went right up through the sole of a trainer. So you want something with a much harder sole than a pair of trainers, but you don't need to wear walking boots. Approach shoes are perfectly adequate for the Sahara Desert Trek. More so than that is a pair of flip-flops. When you get into camp in the evening, you do not want to be wandering around in your trainers. You want to let your feet breathe. So taking a pair of flip-flops with you to have wander around camp, go to the toilet in the middle of the night, these are what you want on your feet. So make sure you've got your flip-flops with you as well. Travel pillow, obviously a good night's sleep is really important. I've got my inflatable travel pillow that goes with me everywhere. So take either a pillow or an inflatable one with you, just so you can have a good night's sleep when you're on the trek. Obviously you will be sharing a tent. Earplugs might be an option if you don't know who you're sharing with. So packing earplugs is also a good piece of advice. And it's also maybe not even the person in the tent with you. All the tents are quite close together, and if you do end up with a noisy snorer in the group, you are going to hear it from wherever you are in whichever tent you're in. So maybe a couple of earplugs is a good piece of advice as well on this trip. First aid kit. Obviously your leaders from the bucket list company or whoever you're traveling with will have their leader kit with a lot more stuff in it than you need to carry, but we do advise people to have their own first aid kit with their own personal medication in it, and also things like ibuprofen, paracetamols, blister plasters. Diorolite is super important on a Sahara Desert Trek, just to replace all the salts and everything that you're losing in your body, especially if you end up getting a little bit ill. And Imodium as well. Whenever you're traveling, always carry Imodium with you as well. Finally, to go into my duffel bag is my dirty washing bag. As I said, you are going to be sweating every day. The clothes are not going to be the nicest smelling after you've worn them all day long on a trek. So what you don't want to be doing is mixing them up with your clean stuff in your duffel bag. So either another small bag or a dry bag that you can roll down, clip together, keep everything in there and not contaminate the rest of your bag with is a super good idea. Hydration wise, in the Sahara Desert, obviously water is few and far between. You will be provided on our trips with bottled water. Now the bottled water needs to be decanted into something before you leave camp, and you can refill your bottles at lunchtime as well, and then again in the evening. So you're going to need to have 2 litres with you. That will see you through from the time you leave camp to lunchtime, and then from lunchtime to the time you get to the camp in the evening again. I always take a water to go bottle with me. Obviously I'll decant the water into there, but quite often when you're on the Sahara Desert Trek, you'll come across wells, you'll come across oases. You can fill your bottle up and then save the bottled water either for other people who haven't got a water to go bottle, or it just gives you extra, especially if the weather's really, really warm and you're going through water quite quickly. So I'll use a water to go bottle. Some people will use an Nalgene bottle and just decant it into one of these, and other people will use a hydration pack as well. If you are taking a hydration pack, please make sure that you have another alternative bottle, because if something happens to this, it breaks, which quite often happens, you're not going to have any additional supplies to fix it, and then if that's your only option, then you're going to be a bit screwed for the rest of your trip. So if you're going to have one of those, make sure you've got one of these or something like this with you as well, just so you can do that. Finally, onto your day pack. You don't need to be carrying a great deal with you on the Sahara Desert Trek. I'll go for like a 35 to 40 litre pack, purely because I like to be able to get into it very easily. I do like this bag because it has the mesh back system on it, which means that my bag is not touching my back. On the Sahara Desert Trek, as we've said, you are going to get very warm, and if the bag was constantly fully on your back, it's going to make you sweat a lot more as well. The thing I like about this one is it's got a good waist system on it, and it's got a full zip down the side, so I can get into it to get whatever I need out. Like I said, the last time I did it, we did have 2 days of rain. So having a rucksack liner inside so everything stays dry is quite important. Obviously the bag dried really quickly as we continued trekking, but the stuff inside it, if that had got wet, would take a lot longer to dry as well. So if you've got any questions on the Sahara Desert or what to pack, We're more than happy to give you advice on what to buy, what to need in the office. So do just pick up the phone and give us a call or send us an email, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Thanks very much for watching the video. Bye-bye.